I hope everybody is doing well. Welcome to the replay. If you're here with us after we've already kicked off here, if you're here with us live, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you're having a great Tuesday morning, or if you're watching the replay of this, having a great day, whatever day it is. We are about to go live on Facebook as well. So if you have somebody that's just dying to that's constantly texting you and asking how to get in on this awesome webinar that you're joining in on, you can tell them to bounce over to the Mission Suite Facebook page, because it's going to be live there too. But thank you so much for being here today. This is going to be we're wrapping out the year. We're coming to the end of it, which is kind of insane. I still am having a hard time believing that, it's not March right now.
Right. Where did the year go, right?
Exactly. I remember signing, it really feels like it was just yesterday that I signed a lease on an office in my building here, on another office in my building here, and texting my wife and saying, well, I'm taking this is my big bet. I'm taking a leap here, and I feel like that was like just the other day,
Yeah, somebody was telling me they felt like this year has gone by so quick because we've packed 2020 and 2021 all into this
right
year, right?
Exactly, right. Exactly. Yeah, the hard drive just can't store that much data, right?
Seriously, right? Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, that's crazy. But well, like I say, I hope that everybody's doing well. I hope that you're having a great day. My name is Ian Campbell, and welcome to the community table, to this month's session of the community table. We are talking about how to use the holidays to bring in new clients before the end of the year. Joining me today, as always, here is Dean Isaacs. He's the founder and CEO of Vantage Group, a serial entrepreneur with over 20 years of hands-on business growth, sales, and marketing experience. And you're going to have to up that to over 25 years at some point soon, I'm sure, right?
It ages me, man.
Yeah, right. I mean, I just hit 20 years myself, and of course, I started when I was too young and stupid to know that I was completely unqualified to be doing it. But but anyway, back to Dean. Dean works with B2B companies across the U.S. that range from startups to the Fortune 500, and he loves helping small and mid-sized businesses achieve their growth goals by developing and implementing high-impact sales, marketing, and growth strategies. As you probably know, like I said, I am Ian Campbell. I'm the CEO of Mission Suite, and so Dean and I have been doing this for about 1.5 years now, believe it or not. It's amazing to see where the time's gone, and again, cramming everything from 2020 and 2021 into that time, Yeah. So before we dive in here, just a couple quick housekeeping items. As I mentioned, we are live on Facebook. If you're joining us on Facebook, I'll be keeping an eye on the comments there. If you have any questions or anything that you want to ask, definitely feel free to drop in the comments, and we'll try and get them answered. If you have some questions and you're here on Zoom, then please use the Q&A feature on Zoom for questions, just so that we can kind of keep everything collected there. And if you are watching a replay, again, use the comments on YouTube, on Facebook, to ask questions, and then we'll do our best to get those questions answered for you as time goes by. But yeah, let's dive in here a little bit. So as we talked about, we are as I mentioned, we are talking about how to use the holidays to bring in new clients before the end of the year, right? And as Dean and I were kind of talking about this today's session here, we talked about the fact that we know, it seems like holiday advertisements are popping up earlier and earlier every year. And God knows Christmas trees are going up earlier and earlier every year.
After July 4th, right?
Exactly, right. But fortunately, I actually talked to somebody who said that they put their Christmas tree up the night before Halloween, and they had trick-or-treaters coming up saying, "Happy trick or treat," and so Anyway, but we all see these things, right? They're all coming up so quickly every year, and these are things that consumer-based businesses get to use pretty effectively, and we see it over and over and over again, and we feel them ourselves. But for B2B clients and for professional services, that tends to be a different thing, because it's not like we can just say that we're going to do a 25% off deal, or maybe we can, but it kind of has a different spin to it. It's harder as an accounting firm to say, hey, I'm going to give you 25% off before the end of the year and still feel professional, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
So that's kind of what we're diving in on today. And so, Dean, I guess the first question that I have kind of coming into this is, with all those holiday sales that we see and that we hear about, and all the success that we hear about for some of these things, why are these things so effective?
Yeah, it's a great question. And really, that's kind of the core of our discussion today, and taking the lessons we can learn from these billion-dollar industries and using those ideas and techniques in our B2B, really sales. It's really not even a marketing conversation as much as it is a sales conversation for B2B businesses at this time of the year. So the reason that these ads work is because it creates urgency and scarcity, right? That's, if I get right to the secret sauce, that's it. So what the biggest holiday or the biggest shopping day of the year is coming up, right? Black Friday. It used to be Black Friday was like a week-long thing, but I saw recently that Target has decided not to open on Thanksgiving versus like opening late in the evening on Thanksgiving, and that's when Black Friday began. Well, no, that's still Thursday, but nonetheless. So they're actually probably trying to give back to their employees, but as a positive byproduct to that, it's compressing this Black Friday sale time frame, right? We can't take advantage of the super duper early deals on Thursday evening. You got to shop early Friday morning. And so that's part of this urgency concept, right? Is you see something that you want or you need, and you know that the deal, usually it's a value-based thing, right, is going away. Right? So that's that urgency to get it done. So that's why these sales are so effective. The other thing that I'm seeing more and more is this concept of scarcity in B2C. We see we can use that on the B2B side, but in the consumer product side, usually you think, you go to Amazon to buy a sweater, and you don't worry about stuff running out of stock. Well, with the supply chain issues and all of the things that we're hearing about now, Amazon has done a really good job. When you go on click on a product that has a low inventory, it will say 12 left, buy now. Don't know when this stuff's going to be, replenished. So that's a scarcity thing, and scarcity also creates urgency to take action. And so the goal here is in B2B, in whatever's left in the year, like 6 weeks, maybe there's 4 weeks of business time. How can we get our prospects that have ghosted us, that have kind of kicked the can down the road, that have slowed the process down, maybe they said they're not ready to buy, how can we get them to take action in this last part of the year? That's the goal today. So to learn the lessons from the Amazons and the Targets and all the B2C product companies about how they create urgency and scarcity, how do they create urgency and leverage scarcity to take action. So that's really what we're going to talk about. And it's a psychological thing, right? There's human nature is that we're driven by two primary emotions, right? Fear or pain, and gain. Right. Those are if you take all of the other sort of like ancillary emotions out, the fear of pain or pain and gain are the two. And psychologists tell us that pain is twice as motivating as gain. You think about that, right? The fear of pain or loss is twice as motivating as us getting something, as this pain or this sort of hope of gain or pleasure. Normally we focus on the upside, the pleasure side, when we're in the B2B space and having conversations with prospects about these are the great things your business is going to achieve if you buy our stuff. That's gain. It's not near as powerful as leveraging pain. So that's the other thing that we'll talk about as well today.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about Black Friday. I was working retail. I was actually working at a toy store retail when back when Black Friday was still just one day, a Black Friday, right? And then they had the weekend deals and whatnot. But I remember having to get up at 4:30 in the morning to be at KB Toys and the Eastview Mall at 5 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, so it was an interesting time, but that kind of urgency and the scarcity around that deal, right? I mean, because everybody wanted the Furby or the Pokemon toy or the Tickle Me Elmo or anything else that made my life a living hell during those 3-4 years that I was working at KB Toys.
Yep.
But yeah, so it was definitely interesting. And so, you know, we talked a little bit about the psychology of selling, right? And I know that utilizing that kind of that sense of urgency and that you know, the fear of loss and the scarcity around that are two big parts of that. Are there any other kind of aspects of the psychology of selling that we see at play here during these big holiday times?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, when we think about the psychology of selling, I often think about the psychology of buying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of what's going on in the buyer's mind. We've talked over the last 18 months a lot about the buyer's journey and all of that stuff, like how do buyers go about finding solutions to their problem. But when you think about actually making the decision to buy, there are two primary things above everything else that drive the decision to buy. Mm-hmm. One is the emotion. We've already talked about that, right?
Sure.
Fear, gain, whatever it is. The second is they have to have a legit need.
Yeah.
Right? They have to have a need. We can try and sell stuff they don't need all day long. Sometimes people will buy it, sometimes they won't. Mm-hmm. But if you can really understand the need and what's driving the need, and you can associate some kind of emotion with it, then you've got the two pieces to the secret puzzle to getting deals done. Mm-hmm. What happens in B2B sales a lot of times is we focus on what we want to sell them, what we think they need, not necessarily what they actually need, right? It's this concept of the doctor, right? They diagnose before they prescribe. Most sales guys are prescribing, right? Because they've only got one thing to prescribe, their stuff.
Right.
Right. So taking that time to diagnose and really understand the impacts of the need, that's the piece that's often missing.
Sure. I mean, it's, you know, and the old adage, I mean, you and I are both woodworkers, right? I mean, so how many times have you successfully fastened two pieces of wood together by hammering a screw into something, right? I mean, it doesn't work, right? And so, but you know, and you hear all the time that when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And I will say that when I was younger, I did try that one time, and it doesn't work well. It ends up with
the outcome that you hope for, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. But you know, another thing that as you mentioned the need, right, and identifying that need. So what occurred to me is that, you know, that there has to be a need there, but oftentimes all it has to be is a perceived need. And I'm curious if there's a distinction that we should be making between the perceived need and the actual need. And if we should, I mean, and if somebody's perceived need is different from what we can identify as their actual need, should we still be kind of trying to utilize these different tools to help move them down the path? Yeah.
That's an interesting concept, because this idea of the prospect's perceived need, what they think so they've got a pain. Mm-hmm. They think they know what medication they need to buy to cure themselves. Mm-hmm. And many times they're wrong. Sometimes they're right. Right? But a lot of times they're wrong. So from a sales perspective, we have to go in with that consultative approach, the open mind, to understand and hear them. The prospect wants to be heard, and understand why they think this perceived need, this perceived solution is going to help them. The truth is that they don't want to buy anything. Perceived need or actual need, they don't want to buy anything. They don't want to spend money. They don't even want to talk to us. What they want to do is they want to solve a problem.
Right.
That's really the goal here. And so if we can understand the problem they're trying to solve and the outcomes of solving the problem, or the negative outcomes or the negative impacts of not solving the problem, then we've got something really to sink our teeth into. Mm-hmm. And then you can move the conversation down the road, and whether it's the action need or perceived need, all of that sort of sits to the wayside, because now we're focusing on the outcome, and the outcome creates this emotion, right? And if they're not going to achieve the positive outcome they want, it starts to create some urgency and some fear.
Yeah.
If they are going to achieve the outcome, then there's obviously the pain and reward. So you can start to leverage those emotions when you get to that point. Mm-hmm. We're just digging into when prospect says, I need a new website,
Right.
and we sell websites, that's great. We can do that. Now, but is the website going to achieve the goal? The question is, why do you need a new website? What do you hope that website is going to achieve, or a new app, or hiring that person, whatever the thing is? We often just take that face value, that perceived need, as the actual solution, and many times that's not even the right medication, if you will.
Right. Absolutely. So, with when we look at things like relating it to the Black Friday sale, right? I mean, the 75-inch TV goes on sale for $500 off, and everybody wants to get in there, right? There's a clear gain, there's a clear need for that, right? But how should we be using that same thing in how do we relate that to in a B2B environment without sounding hokey about it, without feeling like we're losing our professionalism in the professional services that we offer?
Well, it's scarcity, right? It's all about scarcity. If Walmart has those 20 TVs and we want one, it's a nightmare, right? We've all seen the stuff online about those kinds of situations. So everybody's rushing to buy, right? They're all rushing to buy because they believe that there's scarcity, there's not going to be enough of that thing. And so what we want to do is we want to take a step back in the selling process and understand, what can we do to create urgency? Right? What can we do to get a sense of scarcity? So maybe let's talk about urgency and scarcity separately, because I think there are some different techniques we can use.
Sure.
So let's talk about urgency first. The urgency would be to be at the front of the line at the store when the doors open. I want to be at the front of the line, right? And so I've got my kids in tow and they're slow, and I've got to get to the car, and all this stuff building up, and you want to get to the store, and then you get in the car and you drive a little faster than you maybe normally would have done to get to that front of the line. That's creating urgency, right? It's pent up urgency. So we want to create that feeling with our prospect. So I think there are probably 4 or 5 really easy questions that you can ask your prospect to start to build this sense of urgency, to get focus in the conversation. And one of them is just as easy as, when would be the best time for you to solve this problem? Right? When? We've identified the problem. We know that it's not this perceived need. We understand the outcomes and all of that stuff. We know what the problem is, the goal is. When would be the best time to solve this? What are they going to say? Oh, 3 years from now. No, if it's a legit need and it's really causing an issue in the business and it's impacting revenue and profits and stakeholders, they're going to say now, as soon as possible. Oh, okay. So they've just self-identified they want to get this thing fixed quickly. Now it's like, all right, now we're at the front of the line at the store. We're having that conversation. To dig in and create more pain around that urgency, ask questions around the costs, the financial or other, whatever the metric is that they want to measure. How is it impacting your organization? Is it costing you time? Is it costing you money? Is it costing you clients? Is it costing you profits? And how much? They should be able to identify that. If they can, as that consultative salesperson, we should be able to help them quantify that. Okay, so it's costing you 20 hours a week in extra time. Okay. What would you say the value of 1 hour of your time is? It's $60, right? $60 times 20 hours multiplied by the weeks and the months and the years, all of a sudden becomes this big number. So now you're tying something tangible to it. That's a bit of scarcity, right? I want my time back. Another question you can ask is, excuse me, how many other people in your organization is this thing affecting? Is this issue affecting? So now it's like, wow, actually, it's affecting 20 of us. So now it's not the time of value for one, it's the time value for 20 people, right? All this stuff really starts to shine a spotlight on solving the problem now. And if they wait, it's just going to compound the issue. So that's one way to sort of create some urgency. It's really refocusing the conversation back on them.
Yeah. How do you work? So, okay, so you've got those questions, you've got all those different things, like all the answers to those questions, right? So that, okay, so it's costing me 5 hours a week, and it's probably costing 10 other people 5 hours a week. All of our time is worth $100 an hour, and so that adds up to whatever it is, right? So all those, so you have all that stuff. How do you work that into a proposal effectively without coming across as being manipulative.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's an ROI conversation that needs to be had, right? I think that's another good way from a psychological perspective to show the gain, but also the negative consequences of not doing anything. Because that's sometimes the case is we don't lose deals to the competition, we lose deals to inaction, right? They kick the can down the road. They say next year, next month, whatever it is. And of course, again, we're trying to use the year end to create and cause action. So in the proposal, well, let me take a kind of a step back. I believe a proposal is a summary of all the prior conversations we've had. It shouldn't be any surprises, any new things. It should be just this reinforcement of what we've already talked about. They should already be ready to say yes before they receive the proposal. It's just a formal document that summarizes everything. So we've already had this ROI conversation. So if it's this sort of time value thing that we talked about, we can say in a period of weeks or months or years, you're going to get X amount of return on your investment, right? There's going to be this return at some level. And you create urgency by, the longer you wait, the longer it is before you get that return. And ROI isn't always based on dollars, but there's a lot of ways you can use this ROI conversation. So I think creating a mini business case in the proposal is really important, because sometimes we're talking to influencers, but not decision makers. And the decision makers got to take your stuff and do their best job of selling it upstream to the boss. They don't know how to sell your stuff. You do. And so with these conversations you've had, the proposal is that summary of those conversations. And in it is this little mini business case. It can just be a couple of paragraphs that restate the problem, the impacts and negative impacts of not solving the problem, and then the positive outcomes of you using our stuff, our product or services. That's your sales pitch. It's genuine. It's in their words. It's from their perspective, and then it helps them make a decision or sell upstream. So that's one way I would do that.
All right. And so we distinguish between scarcity and urgency here. So, and we talked about urgency. What about on the scarcity side?
Yeah. So this is one of those where it can backfire on you, right? So in your world, there is no scarcity with Mission Suite. I can plug in as many people as I want, hundreds of thousands or millions of people. So that
from your lips to God's ears. Right.
But if you've got a service where you require people to do stuff, you do have legitimate limits to your capacity.
Right.
So going back to those questions we asked before about the need and the pain and all of that stuff, the other thing that we need to get them to self-identify with is when they want to get this thing fixed by. I remember the first question I asked was, when's the best time to solve this? And they've said, well, by X date. Now isn't really a good answer. Let's get a date on the calendar, right? Let's get some kind of realistic time frame. I know you want to solve it now, but what's realistic in your organization? Okay, we want to have something up and running by January 1st.
Right.
Let's just use that as an example. So now you've got a deadline and a need. You can leverage scarcity. And you can do that in a couple of ways. And it has to be legit. It can't be sleazy, because it can come across as sleazy. So one thing you can say is, we're booking our resources out. We're doing resource planning for Q1 right now. And so if you want to be, if we want to start, let's say, your implementation the first week of January, then we're already at 80% capacity for January. And so if we want to get you on the books, we need to get the proposal agreed upon this week so we can set aside the resources. Don't lie, right?
Right.
You got to be legit about it. But the reality is that we're all short with resources right now. And so you can leverage that resource thing, and it feels real to the prospect because they know what's going on in the employment market. So that's one way to create some scarcity. The other could be this sort of bundling concept too. So if you've got multiple levels of services or products, you can have a bundle that adds value that is going away by the end of the year. So our 2021 bundle included these 5 things. In 2022, it's only going to include these 3 things, and it's going to be the same price.
Right.
And we're readjusting our pricing and our packaging and assuming it's legit. Again, I'm not advocating any dishonesty here, but we're all looking at our pricing and how we package our services and how we deliver. Whatever's going to change in 2022, you can leverage in 21 for year end. So those are a couple of ways to do it. Are you going to have price increases?
Yeah.
A lot of my clients have already increased prices and are planning on doing it again in Q1. Be honest about it. Be upfront about it. So here's what's going on. Here's what labor prices and all this other stuff that drives increased costs. But if we can get you on the books this month, then we can lock in those prices for you for whatever period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Excellent. Excellent. So, you know, one of the things that you and I talked about before this too was that, you know, we're talking about this in the context of the end of the year, right? But a lot of this stuff really can be used, you know, is used all the time. We just don't really think about it, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because the prospect doesn't give a crap about your monthly goals or your year-end bonus. They don't care. Right. So we sometimes, it's funny because you look at the B2B sales statistics, and there's a lot of numbers out there. There's a lot of surveys that show that December is the highest sales month of the year. Why do you think that is? Because salespeople are busting their butt to make quota to either get their bonus or keep their job a lot of time.
Sure.
Right. It's just a fact. They've kind of coasted through the summer. You know, September, October comes around and like, oh man, I'm behind goal. I need to do some stuff to catch up. And they're busting butt. So we created this own internal urgency as a salesperson to get some deals done. So why would you do that? I think that we had Stephanie Hogan on a month or two ago, and she's a big proponent of the 12-week year. And really what that does, it takes the 12 months and breaks it into these 4 quarterly years, these yearly cycles, because we react as humans to these deadlines. So why wait to year end to do this stuff when you can do it every quarter? You can create this sort of artificial year end.
Right.
So I think that's one of that's the psychology of the seller is to create these deadlines for yourself so that you can make year end. So I think that's sort of one of the things I see with salespeople is it becomes one of two things. And I may be kind of completely off of your question, I don't know. One of them is you have a great December because you focus, you do all the right things, or, oh, nobody closes deals in December is what you believe, this myth that you believe, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're like, oh, everybody's off between Christmas and New Year's and November, you know, Thanksgiving. You convince yourself that the last month of the year is a throwaway year. Well, guess what? If that's what you believe, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So to that point, and this is something that you've talked about in the past, let's talk a little bit about unfair advantage days.
Oh yeah, I'm pleased you brought that out. That's awesome.
Yeah, because these are something that this is something that, you know, I think we talked about it last month when we had Stephanie on, and but like that mindset, that myth that nobody does business in December, right? I mean, there can be quite a few of those types of days that that no one else is working, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This was the concept that an old sales manager of mine sort of gave me a name for this thing, right? Kind of labeled it probably 20, 25 years ago. And when he was talking about this unfair advantage, I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? And at the time, I was selling into the Fortune 500. It's big organizations. This is not just small and mid-market. This applies up and down the food chain. And the concept is this, that the boss, whatever that is, right? It could be the business owner if you're selling into small and mid-market. It could be senior executives in middle market or above. They work, right? A lot of times they'll give days off, or their sort of gatekeepers will take their days off around the holidays. They'll take the day before a holiday off. Maybe they'll extend if it's like the 4th of July and it falls on a Monday. They'll take the Tuesday and the Wednesday off. So it's the days around the holidays, which includes the infamous 2 weeks between Christmas and New Year's. And as a boss, as an owner, as an executive, I don't have the same luxury to take all of that time off as the sort of the lower level employees do. They've earned it. Or it's like use it or lose it vacation, PTO, right? Ian, you got 3 days, you got to take them before the end of the year.
Right.
You got to take them, right?
Yeah.
And so without the gatekeepers, without the distractions as well in the office, a lot of times these folks are using this time for planning. They're
Mhm.
using this time for getting to the stuff that's stacking up they haven't got to during the busier times of the year, which often also means that they're more available
Right.
and they're more open-minded to having conversations that they otherwise wouldn't have when the emails are pouring in and everything else. So that's when unfair advantage day is.
Mhm.
So the afternoon before a holiday, now a big holiday like a Christmas or a Thanksgiving, maybe the afternoon before isn't ideal because people have probably already taken off. But sometimes the morning before, or the day before that, or the day after that,
Mhm.
pick up the freaking phone,
Yeah.
right? All of these, you get the gatekeeper, they send you the voicemail. Even if you've got a direct number for somebody, it goes right to voicemail. Pick up the phone. Because
Mhm.
sometimes, especially if you're selling into the small or mid-market where the executives are kind of taking that inbound call because the receptionist or the front desk person is out, it rolls to their direct line. So they're answering the phone regardless. They don't
Mhm.
know who's calling.
Sure.
Pick up the phone and try and have a conversation with another human.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's where sales that's where sales is at. It's having a conversation. So that's what an unfair advantage day is go back through your prospect list. Who are those people that haven't responded? Who are those people that push you down the road? Who are those people that are if I can have a conversation with this person,
Mhm.
it's going to be good for them and for us. You should have that list. Create your unfair advantage day list
Yeah.
throughout the year. Tag it in your CRM. Pick up the phone. Send an email. So that's what the unfair advantage day is, and we're rife with those now, right?
Yeah.
Before and after Thanksgiving, before and after Christmas, and then obviously around New Year's. It's big time, and you may not close a deal in 21,
Mhm.
but you may be setting yourself up for a really successful January by doing that.
Very nice. So, a lot, excuse me. So obviously we're talking about some more excuses that the holidays offer us too, right? I mean, the idea of using the holidays frankly, it gives us reasons to reach out to people. It gives us reasons to talk to people. And another thing that you and I have talked about in the past is this idea of use it or lose it budgets, right?
Yeah.
And so, and kind of dialing in on those types of things. And so I'm wondering if you can kind of speak to that a little bit and maybe, because these are things that this is a way that you can by December 31st, they've got to do this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's part of your qualifying and discovery should be understanding the prospect's budget cycle. What's their fiscal year?
Mm-hmm.
What are their purchasing limits as an individual? Do they ever buy stuff on a credit card, or do they have to always issue a PO? Really understanding that sort of like the mechanical process they use to buy stuff. And what you may find is that they have a use it or lose it budget. And by definition, if you don't know what that means, is if I have money in my corporate budget that I don't use this year, it doesn't roll over to next year.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually could decrease the amount of budget I have next year, because if I didn't need it this year, you probably don't need it next year, right? And so they're incented at so many levels to spend the money. And so if you build a relationship, you understand they have a use it or lose it budget, it can be a pretty easy, quick sell. Now, of course, it depends on the nature of your business and what you're selling. But one of the questions I would always ask is, do you ever purchase stuff on a corporate credit card?
Mm-hmm.
That's a really easy purchase. Sometimes that avoids the need for a PO and procurement and all these other things. Like, I have a $5,000 limit on my P card, my procurement card. Sweet.
Right.
Do you want me to invoice this thing across 3 invoices? Because it's $15,000, let's say. Mm-hmm. We can break this thing into 3 $5,000 invoices over the next 3 weeks, so you can get this thing done.
Right.
Does that work? Yeah, that's awesome. So you've avoided all of procurement, and we know procurement slows the buying process down. We've been able to get them to use up their budget, and they did it easily with a purchasing card or a company credit card. So understanding that stuff is really important, and it also emphasizes the need to understand how your prospect buys.
Mm-hmm.
Who's involved? What are the needs? What do they need from you from a contract perspective or paperwork? Do they have to issue the PO? Can you just do the credit card? Get into that stuff. The earlier, the better, right? That's should be part of your discovery early on, so that there are no surprises when we get to the point of them making a buying decision.
Right. What about some ways that we can potentially use the holidays to re-engage old clients or people that, maybe have just kind of gone, so like just kind of gone slack a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in doing client reviews. And so if you think about, if you can say, let's take our top 10 clients, whatever they are, and we're going to do a year-end review. The review has to have a benefit to the client, right? Why would they sit down with you for 30 minutes or an hour if there's no benefit to them? So you have to think about that. Is it that you're going to take their feedback and improve service? Is it you're going to take their feedback and add new features if you're a software company? What's the benefit to the prospect? But if they're a good client, they're probably happy to sit down with you. And so sit down with a structured review and have your questions prepared. You can ask about their experiences in working with your company and the products and the features and the price and all that stuff. But to me, that's less important than understanding what's changed in their business. So part of it is you're going to do a review of their business. They assume that they're going to review your stuff.
Right.
You're going to ask questions about their business and ask about, how's the last year or two gone? Are you growing? Are you shrinking? Are you changing? Your market changing? Your needs, your business, all of that stuff. Because what is it going to do? It's going to give you information that you can leverage. Maybe you'll find an opportunity to sell them more, extend their agreement, change how they work with you, grow the account. Maybe they have some money they need to spend and they let that slip. So that year-end review is a really powerful way to get reconnected. And you can use the year-end or the holidays as the guise of doing it. I think you do it more often than in December, but nonetheless. Sure. So that's one thing. I think go back through your prospect list for the year. Look at all of the opportunities that you've identified that didn't move forward. Whether you were ghosted or they said we're not ready to buy or whatever it was. Now's the time to go back and revisit those people too, for all the reasons we've just described. But go check in with them. Have a conversation. See what's changed in their business. A question you can ask is, has something changed? We talked back in July about this stuff. You sounded excited. You saw the need. You were hoping to get this thing done. Has something changed? And that really short question often elicits some really good feedback, because you're asking, are you going to buy from me? You're just asking, what's changed? Right? Or another way to phrase it is this still a priority? Right. A simple email to them, checking in. I don't like check-in because it's kind of generic, but seeing how the year went. We talked about XYZ. Is this still a priority for you? You'll be surprised that those that have ghosted you actually respond to that simple question. It actually comes from a book by a guy named Chris Voss. It's Never Split the Difference. It's a book on negotiation. Okay. He was the FBI's chief hostage negotiator for like 20 years. So if you haven't read the book, for you Ian, and for the audience, Never Split the Difference is an awesome book. There's so many great things in there. And he uses that email. Is this still a priority? Right. So that's another way to kind of go back to a list and go back and use that year-end as urgency to create some conversations. Sure. Because at the end of the day, and you mentioned this before, that using the year-end and using the holidays is, yes, there are ways that we can, kind of pull in some last cash for the end of the year and kind of, meet that artificial deadline that we create for ourselves, but also to set up for a really strong opening to the new year too. Yeah. We talked about use it or lose it budgets, right? Well, guess what clients and businesses are doing now? They're creating their 2022 budgets. And do you want to be in that budget or not, right? Yeah, of course you do. So these conversations are sometimes going to allow you to be set up for success in Q1. But if you hadn't made that outreach and had that conversation, maybe they would put somebody else's proposal or number in the budget. So I think we've spoke a lot about sort of like the bottom of the funnel sales activity, trying to get deals done and following up and all that. Yes, important. But I think that obviously I believe that December is not a time to take your foot off the gas. Sure. And so another area that you can focus on is sort of top of funnel sales activity. So making a few more outbound calls, trying to complete that one or two more intro calls that day or that week, driving to demo, right? Depending on what business you're in, or discovery, getting some of those done now. Again, if my theory holds true that a lot of these people you want to talk to are more available, you're going to be able to do that, and that sets you up for success in January, right? If you wait until January, I think January 1st is like a Sunday this year, so Monday would be like the 3rd. So you roll into the office on Monday the 3rd, you kind of figure out what's going on. That week's gone poof because you've been talking to your friends and hanging out and scrolling social. So before you know it, it's the middle of January. And you're like, all right, now I need to put my foot on the gas.
Right.
You figure out your plan and you start getting going because you've kind of taken December off. You just lost 1/12 of your year, or 1/3 of Q1.
Right.
Like that. We just talked about how quickly the year goes by. Start January, start 2022 in December. All this activity is going to help feed the momentum going into the year, and you will make some of these deals won't close in December.
Right.
But you know what? They'll close in January versus closing in February or March.
Yeah.
So what are your top of funnel activities? Your prospecting, your outbound, following up on leads. If you've got inbound leads on your website, like requests for demo and that kind of stuff, now is the time to follow up with those things and be really diligent about driving to that demo or whatever that's equals or stages in your sales process in December. Get that first meaningful conversation done in December. So then you can easily set up the next step in January and you've already got momentum.
Right. Right. Yeah. Very cool. So what are some other things that I know that you've got some ideas here that you brought to the table too? I'm not sure if we covered all of them, but some other I definitely want to open it up for you to talk about some other things that might be able to get some people off the dime.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked a lot about urgency, and I think sometimes people that are non-sales people, when they hear the word urgency, they think, ew, it's slimy, right? But what they're thinking about is sales pressure, which is different from urgency. And I want to sort of distinguish the two. Urgency comes from a real legit internal need to get something done. I want to get to the front of the line at Target and my kids are slowing me down, right? That fear of loss drives urgency. It's legit. If I'm at the back of the line, I'm not getting that 80-inch TV for $100, right? The difference is that sales pressure is an outside source pressuring you. So it's me as the sales guy saying, here's why you've got to buy. Here's what you've got to do. And I'm pushing on it because it's actually the opposite of empathetic. It's selfish. It's a selfish reason for me to get you to buy. I've got to hit that year-end number, get my bonus, my quota, whatever it is. That creates an artificial external pressure.
So what we're talking about here is kind of the difference between motive and motivation, right? Is that, I mean, because there are all these studies now that say that an external force cannot motivate somebody. You have to figure out what their internal motivation is and tap into that, right?
Totally right. Absolutely. So urgency creates action. Pressure creates inaction.
Right.
In our world, what does it do? It flushes out these unrealistic sales objections, or we're not ready to buy, or I have to go talk to the boss, or whatever other BS we deal with, right? They're kicking the can down the road because they feel pressure to do something they don't want to do. But the internal urgency or motivation, if you will, that's kind of coming from their need, that creates action. Right, that actually flushes out anything, and they're going to work with you to get the deal done versus work against you to not. So I think there's a really big distinction there. It's the old used car salesman employer, right? What is it going to take for me to get you into this car today? Right. Is the wrong question. It's the wrong question, and we immediately go, oh, right? We immediately create this barrier between us and the salesperson, and we don't even want to go on the lot anymore, right? I mean, that's why there are the Carvanas in the world and and all that, where you can buy online. Because we know we're going to get this pressure to buy. Well, a lot of people, when they talk to a salesperson, they assume instinctually they're going to be pressured to buy.
Right.
And when they have an experience that's different, they actually all of a sudden open up and they become this sort of like champion to get the deal done versus a point of contact that's filtering you out from the boss. So I think it's a big distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess we started going down this, and I bumped into it, we started kind of did a little diversion there. Yeah. But was there something specific about kind of using that sense of urgency, using that kind of internal urgency?
Yeah. It's about taking action, right? Again, if we try and get things done by the end of the year, action, we've got to get something moving. and moving more quickly than slowly. And that's what urgency does. Then they get to sort of impose their own deadline on taking that next step.
Right.
And with as a salesperson, we tend to focus on the close, and the close is just the result of all the other mini closes, actions prior.
Right.
So being clear with the prospect that they have this desire, this urgency with associated pain, loss, and a deadline to it. They've said, right, the next thing is I need to do this.
Right.
We agree upon a deadline, and then we hold them accountable for getting it done. That moves the deal along. It creates momentum in the deal. And the next step may just be to bring a group of people together from their organization to go through the demo again. Simple as that. Great. We can help them get that done. We can help by holding them accountable.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're motivated to do it because it's their urgency, not mine.
Right. Right. Very cool. So just a reminder to our audience here as we kind of circle in towards the end of our session this morning, that whether you're on Facebook, on Zoom, what have you, if you've got questions, definitely definitely let us know. If you want to hear some ways that we might be able to do this with your business, with some of your work, definitely please feel free to ask here. Where I just want to make sure that everybody knows and remembers that we are here to answer questions too. So,
yep.
but yeah, so it's, I always think about this idea, and I keep circling back to this kind of, artificial deadlines that we create. And, because on one side, they're really challenging. They can become a real big problem, to your point, right? I mean, the salesperson who needs to get that deal closed by the end of the month, otherwise he knows he's going to be disciplined the next month around, right? So they can be really detrimental. But if we use them right, if we figure out a way to actually make them effective for us, then we can use these artificial deadlines to kind of grow things, right? And that's where I really like that kind of concept of everything from figuring out, hey, listen, what do you need to get done? You've got an artificial deadline on you, just like I do, right? So what you need to get done by the end of the year, right? And kind of knowing the right kind of questions to use those deadlines, I guess that's, and to kind of circle this into a question. I mean, are there any specific questions that come to mind for you that you would say, let's make sure that this is a question that you can ask that kind of highlights that deadline that can get somebody to give you the information that you're looking for?
Yeah, I think one of the simplest questions is, do you think this is going to be a decision you can make by the end of the month? Right? That's a yes or a no, hopefully, right? And if it's a yes, great. Let's work our way back in the process so I can understand what are the things you need to go through, what are the gates you need to pass through to get to that purchase, right? To get to that yes. And let's align on them. Then all of a sudden, we're kind of sitting on the same side of the desk,
right,
helping this person get this thing done versus me pushing across the desk. And if they say no, okay, when do you think, what's realistic for you to be able to make this decision?
Yeah.
Well, whatever, right? The answer is whatever it is. Now we have reset our expectations and we can work with that. So many times we just make the assumption that the end of the month is as important to them as it is to us.
Right.
And oftentimes they don't care, right? Now, year end, we've talked about some of the reasons, but so ask that question: how likely is it you think you can make that purchasing decision by the end of this month?
Yeah.
Get that feedback, because that sets the foundation for the rest of the conversation.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah.
So as we do wrap this up here and we circle in for a close, is what is one thing that you would like to make sure that everybody takes away from this conversation?
Yeah, I think the myth that no deals get done in December, don't buy into that myth, right? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when you buy into it, and it's easy to take your foot off the gas. It's been a long 11 plus months. So look at December as your strong close and your strong start to next year. Have a plan for the month. We're November the 16th. Over the rest of this week, flush out the plan. What are you going to do in the final weeks of the month? If you are going to take some time off, you probably earned it. That's awesome. If you have to say December 15th or December 20th is my year-end deadline, that's cool. Work hard through that date. Have a plan. Know what you're going to do. Go through your prospect list. Identify your strategy for each prospect. We talked about a few simple emails, some questions you can ask. Document that stuff. Go back through the recording. This video will be on YouTube probably by the end of the day. Go back through and grab the questions that I suggested. Have a plan. Don't just wing it the rest of the year. You'll get poor results, but have a plan for the rest of the year. So don't buy into the myth that no deals get done in December. That's my big takeaway.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Well, to everybody who joined us, thank you so much for being here. Dean, thank you as always. It's a great conversation. I really enjoyed doing these here, and definitely like he mentioned, this will be on YouTube here shortly. This will be up on Mission Suite's Facebook page, and then everybody who registered or will get an email, with a recording link and all that good stuff. So and I'm willing to bet that this will show up on Dean's social medias in some way, shape, or form as well.
I have a sneaking suspicion it will.
Right. Perfect. All right. Well, with that, have a great Thanksgiving to everybody, and enjoy the rest of this week. And we'll see you next time around. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.